afternoon. I had to see what time it was. I'm just jumping back on here real quick. Like I said, I would do if I had the time um, to play the prosecutors, what he had to say after Shanda Vander Ark's guilty verdict the other day. Yesterday was when we watched it. And so I will play that. If you hear a noise, it is my dog, Hera. It's her second birthday today, so she's getting some special attention and gets to be in here with me. If she does, hey, if she starts to be quiet. If she doesn't start to be quiet, then she's going to have to go. So hopefully you can't hear. But anyway, let's get into this. And sorry, I'm trying to see what's going on over here. Apparently nothing. So this is Vinny from Court TV. He's a prosecutor. Not my favorite. If you watched my earlier video when the defense attorney spoke, and if you didn't, you should watch it. It was he did a good job, and he admitted justice was served, and this was the hardest case he's ever had. Vinny, on the other hand, likes to sensationalize things, and he had a folder that had a picture of Timothy, which if you watch the trial, the judge made sure, out of respect for Timothy, who was the victim in this case, not to show any of his pictures, whether he was alive at the time, and certainly not any pictures from when he was deceased. He was 15 years old, weighed 69 pounds, basically was starved to death by his mother. Her hands were not ever really on. She was never hands-on, so to speak, but she handed the orders down to her son. In the last hours of Timothy's life, she had her Great Dane service dog, which I have thoughts about that. Having a Great Dane as a service dog. But that's for another time. She ordered the dog to lick Timothy's face to see if he would see if he reacted. So she kind of was really good at just ordering people and animals to do her dirty work, so to speak. And so her hands were, I think she thought her hands were off of this, and maybe she wouldn't, then she couldn't be tried for it. Well, she was tried. Horrible things were said. It was very hard to listen to. No pictures were shown. Didn't need to be shown. The audio from the video of Timothy's last hours, or after Timothy had passed away, was hard enough. I can't imagine what the jury was thinking when they were done. I don't even know that they deliberated for an hour. I mean, it's possible. I don't know. I didn't check. I just was going by the time that I saw it go to them, and they come back. So maybe 2 hours, maybe. It wasn't long. It was not long at all. It seemed to be like kind of long enough to fill out the paperwork. But, so I have the prosecutor pulled up, or have Vinny. You're going to see Vinny's face. You lucky dogs. Oh, Vinny. But anyway, what I was saying about Vinny, he has this folder in his hands, and he's like, in this is a picture of Timothy that the court wouldn't allow to be shown, and we're not gonna show it, but I'm going to look at it, and then I'm going to give you my reaction. Like, you, Vinny, are sensationalizing this kid's death. The court wasn't allowed to show it. You're not going to show it, but you're going to give us your reaction, like a reaction video. No, inappropriate. He reacted how you'd kind of would think he would react to a 15-year-old who weighed 69 pounds at the time that he died. The medical examiner said you could count all his ribs. It was horrible. It was horrible to listen to. I didn't want to see the picture. I didn't need to see him see the picture. I don't know. But I did want to hear what the prosecutor had to say. The audio's a little wonky in this, but I think it's it's on the prosecutor's end. I kind of wish people that were going to do these live interviews on TV, from remotely, would get microphones and not just rely on their microphone from their laptop, computer, whatever. It would be better. But what do I know? Alrighty. So I have everything boosted. I'm going to make sure this is still turned up. It is. And here we go.
Special guest joining us tonight, Chief Trial Attorney from Muskegon County Prosecutor's Office, prosecuted this case. Matt Roberts is with us. Matt, great to see you tonight. Give me where you are going through a case like this, and when you prosecute a case, you dive deep. You've got to live it. Where are you emotionally right now?
Well, thank you for having me, Vinny. I appreciate it. You really hit it there. Emotionally, this is, and I'd echo what Mr. Johnson said there in that clip. I've been doing this for 22 years, and this is the most difficult case that I've ever had from an emotional standpoint. And I can tell you that when that verdict was read, there was just a sense of relief, a sense of just that relief washing over. I know the entire team, my trial partner, Kristen Gilmore, who I could not have done this without, and Lieutenant Duxima, who was right there with me from the Norton Shores Police Department, and the detectives. We all had a moment there afterwards. There was a lot of tears, there was a lot of emotion, but it was great to get it to this point. But we can never lose sight of the fact of why we're here, and that a young man lost his life just senselessly to get us to this point.
So let's go back a little bit. As you're first getting this case and going through and revealing and getting the evidence and going through it, what's going through your mind as you're digging through, figuring out exactly what happened and how it all happened?
Well, first and foremost, it was the hard work of the Norton Shores Police Department and the detectives involved here in bringing it to us. I actually first became aware of what was happening in the case when a good friend of mine called me. She actually conducted the interview of the minor child, the child that we referred to as G, called me up the night that this had happened and said, you just won't believe the things that I've just heard from this child. And she told me the details, the gruesome details. And I didn't believe it. I said, this just can't possibly be true. And then as things unfolded that next day, and talking to the medical examiner and talking to the detectives and deciding to make a charging decision here, it was all true. And frankly, that was just the tip of the iceberg. And as we prepared this case moving forward, each time we thought we had reached the bottom, if you will, like that there was it could not get any worse. The behavior here, the conduct just couldn't get any worse. It did. And it was like that all the way up to trial and preparing it. So it was just gut punch after gut punch as we were doing this. But we never lost sight of what was important here, and that was to try to get the justice we could for Timothy, because he had become essentially a prisoner in his own home, and there was nobody that could speak out for him. There was nobody that could say, what's happening to this child isn't right, because of the efforts of his mother, and in part the efforts of his brother.
How long was Timothy tortured for? What are you gathering from your investigation?
As near as we can tell, the first real reference to what is happening happens in February, early February. That's approximately a month or so after the stroke that unfortunately caused the minor child G's father to be out of the home, unable to be in the home, leaving the defendant with the three boys in the home. And all we can piece together really is through the text messages primarily. And we went back and poured over those text messages. Kristen and I split those up and just went through them line by line looking for it. And we started to identify in early February references to locking up the food, references to the restraints, references to first the zip ties and then later the cuffs. So it looks like early February. I wish I could say that I don't think Timothy was suffering all that time, but unfortunately I do. I think that's really when it started. And as the investigation progressed, it was obvious that she had gone to such great lengths to make sure that Timothy was not seen by anyone. He was.
I think that I wonder. I can't tell. I mean, I have no evidence to support or, you know, for or against anything that I'm about to say. I just wonder, did it start in February or did it get worse in February? Because that's a huge bridge to cross, in my opinion, of going from maybe you not treating him the best to starving him. So I'm kind of wondering if his life was horrible and then got worse. I just don't think he had a good life ever. So, dad couldn't handle him, ship him out. Mom couldn't handle him and did him in. I think he probably had a miserable, miserable life.
Was homeschooled. He never was enrolled in school. He never went to a doctor. He was not, essentially was not even allowed outside. The only time he was outside was for punishments. And it was in the backyard. And frankly, the neighbors, the folks in the neighborhood didn't even know that there was, knew about the older child, knew about the younger child, didn't even know that Timothy existed.
She was working as a law clerk, right? I mean, so what did people who were interacting with her outside of that home have to say about her? Did you get a picture of what sort of life she was leading there? And was there anything about that would make anyone think that there could potentially be something of the level of that darkness happening in her world?
Well, nothing that was uncovered during the investigation suggests that any of the neighbors had any idea what was taking place. Again, the only other adult that had been in the home, Adam Vander Ark, who tragically passed away earlier this year, was, because of the stroke, was out of the home, so he was not able to see what was taking place. Timothy's biological father and stepmother actually lived in Florida, so they were not able to see things, and the defendant went to some great lengths, as I indicated before, to make sure that even the grandmother, even Adam's parents, when they tried to come and see G, that they were not allowed into the home, to the extent that she was literally tracking them on their phones and trying to make sure that she beat them to her house and made sure that G would be outside to be picked up so nobody would come into the home. I personally actually met her when she was working in her capacity as a clerk for one of our circuit court judges the year before this happened, and certainly there was nothing to indicate at that time that anything like this was taking place. I'd like to think that it wasn't happening at that time, because that was in summer of 2021, and that would have been right about the time that Timothy first came to live with her, and Adam was still in the home at that time. So it's just another one of those cases where people say, well, I never would have seen this I never would have expected this from this person, but here we are in this prison that Timothy was kept in his home.
Now, there was so much evidence, including some videos that the jury didn't necessarily see, but you did a masterful job, your team, in presenting this case. That moment where you're cross-examining her and you put the photos in front of her, what did you think of that moment, and what did you think of her reaction?
Well, to be blunt, it seemed orchestrated, and I don't mean to suggest that Mr. Johnson or anyone on our team had a hand in that. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Mr. Johnson and his office, and as you indicated here at the beginning of the segment, that they have a job to do, and Fred's team does it, and Fred does it admirably, and he did so in this case. But it seemed just orchestrated on her part. I am convinced that she had seen those photographs before. So to have a reaction like that, it just didn't strike me as genuine. I believe that she had seen the photographs the week before. We had a hearing in front of the judge to determine whether or not the photographs were going to be allowed and under what circumstances. and they were displayed at that point. And she certainly did not appear to have that reaction. But I wasn't that. I was walking away from her. She started to have that reaction, and I did not. Once she started to whatever dry heave or vomit or whatever it is that she did, I did not go up there. I certainly respected whatever level of privacy she was due at that point, but it felt rehearsed. It really did.
I hate his audio. Sorry about that. I agree. It felt rehearsed. Two, not to be gross, I kind of wish he would have went up there to see if she was really throwing up or she was just faking it or dry heaving, whatever she was doing. But I 100% agree with him. I didn't believe her then. I don't believe her now. I'm watching it again. I still don't believe her. I have no sympathy for this woman. Zero.
I was questioning it myself last night, and many times we see crocodile tears. This is the first crocodile
Didn't see any
heave,
tears
I
from
think,
her.
in the history of court TV. Maybe it's a new trend. We'll see. Let me ask you this, because
I'm sorry.
in these cases where the victim...
Sorry, I spoke over Vinny's starring moment. He said, we see crocodile tears in court. This was a crocodile heave. All right. Get it, Vinny. Oh my gosh. Seriously. What? I'm only laughing because he's so ridiculous.
Victim is the child, and a parent is on trial for the murder. So many times it's so heartbreaking that there's no one in the courtroom for the victim, and prosecutors and investigators, I know, are so passionate, and you all are there. Was there anyone from outside of your team that was there for Timothy inside that courtroom?
There was. It was actually the stepmom who was actually able to make it up here from Florida, came up here, and she was also able to see Paul, the co-defendant in this case, briefly have a jail visit with him while she was up there. So it felt like there was at least somebody there that was there for Timothy. But quite frankly, anybody that's even touched even remotely this case has felt an affinity for it and an affinity for doing what was right for Timothy. And we had a lot of people in the courtroom. There were a lot of folks from my office. There was a lot of folks from Fred's office that were there. There were a lot of folks just off the street who had taken an interest in the case and felt like they needed to do the right thing. But again, in part primarily really because of the actions of the defendant and her efforts to just keep him isolated and keep him away from people. It was hard to get somebody there for him, but there were people there, and at the end of the day, we speak for the victims. We speak for those that can't speak for themselves anymore, and I'm proud to do that every day with the men and women at the Muskegon County Prosecutor's Office.
Yeah, and I always point this out to folks because people don't realize it. When we have folks like you dedicate years and years in a career to prosecuting criminals, I remind everyone that you could make a whole lot more money going out into private practice, whether you're doing works for corporations, even criminal defendants, if that would ever be a choice. But we need people like you who dedicate their careers to this, and it's not just guys like me who go in for a few years and then leave. You can't prosecute cases like this with young rookie prosecutors. You need experienced, dedicated professionals, and I hope and I'm sure the folks in Muskegon County understand that. But I always like to remind people who are watching, because sometimes they forget, because you can make a lot of money.
I don't have any idea how this guy is overall as a prosecutor. I've seen one trial. That's it. He did this one pretty clean. I have no complaints about this one. But Vinny, you're correct. You can make more money in private practice. Absolutely. However, there are bad prosecutors out there that they're making okay money because he's going to say this guy's making decent money. But their ambition is higher than prosecutor, right? They want to be maybe the attorney general of the state attorney general. Maybe they have political ambitions, and they don't care how many scalps they hang on the wall as long as they hang them up there And look at all my convictions. They don't care. They're climbing that ladder. A good prosecutor will be a good prosecutor no matter if they're not going to prosecute people that they don't think they should prosecute. But two, they're not going to win at all costs like some of the prosecutors we've seen. I have a feeling Vinny may fall in that second category in the slime. I don't know about this guy. Love to see another trial, I think. I don't want him to ruin himself for me by being slimy. But we do need good prosecutors. We need honest prosecutors. We need good investigators. We need good defense attorneys. We need good judges. Most judges were former prosecutors. That doesn't help in some cases. So, yeah, you can make more money in the private sector. Yep. If you're good, I hope you stay. If you're a good public defender, I hope you stay. I don't know. That it kind of bothered me when he said that, like he's doing the world a favor. Maybe he is. Maybe he is for the greater good. Maybe I don't know. But not all of them are, Vinny, so maybe we don't speak as though, that's a thing. Because I can put some slime in front of you.
A trial attorney like this can make a lot of money, folks. He does okay, but I mean, there's a level of sacrifice and true service in what you're doing. Let me ask you about Paul. Two things. What did you think of his relationship with his mother, his relationship with his brother, and what's his legal status and what is going to happen to him?
So Paul represents, something of a challenge for our office and for me in dealing with this, because on the one hand, I do hold him responsible in part for what happened here. He was, for all intents and purposes, he was the enforcer of the punishments that the defendant in this case wanted to hand down, and all of those punishments combined are what were the basis of the first-degree child abuse charge, and ultimately he was a participant in the malnourishment, which is the cause of death and the basis for the murder charge. So I do hold him responsible for that. But I can't lose sight of the fact that I'm also dealing with a man who certainly does appear to have some special needs of his own. I've had an opportunity to meet with Paul several times in anticipation of him testifying, and I very genuinely got the impression that he feels genuine remorse for this, as he should. I'm not suggesting he shouldn't. He absolutely should. But it was clear from those meetings, and it was even clear from watching his testimony in court, that he would constantly look over towards the defendant as, I don't know if looking for some type of approval or looking to see if she was going to have a reaction. I'm told there was a very strong reaction that he had at one point during his testimony when he talked about that photograph that he took and sent it to her a few weeks before Timothy passed away, that he actually gave him a full meal that day. That he looked over to see what her reaction would be to that, and I'm told she had quite the reaction to that, because it was the first time that she had heard that because her response in the text message was give him a piece of bread, but he actually ended up giving her a full meal. So we have to balance out that it's sort of balancing out the good with the bad, and I've committed to Paul and to his attorney that if and only if he chooses to plead guilty to the first-degree child abuse charge, that I will make sure that I represent to the judge how he was instrumental and how he was helpful to us in order to achieve this conviction. But it doesn't forgive the bad, and he's been quite open and honest and said he's not necessarily looking for forgiveness. He's hoping for some mercy, but I think he's prepared to accept what is coming to him. In terms of his actual legal status, I believe next week we are having a status conference, and it will be up to him and his attorney at that point to decide if they want to enter a plea or if they want to take the case to trial. It's not for me to speculate on that, and I'll leave them to their decision there.
They kind of ended on me like the whole Channel 13 did the whole trial. Just boop, done, 5 o'clock. See you later. I don't know what kind of time Timothy or Paul is looking at for his part in this. I do hope he gets some leniency. I do think he's remorseful. I do think he was honest on the stand. When they read the text messages back and forth between them, I'll tell you, I didn't like him at all. I was, when he was going to testify, I didn't really care what he had to say. I mean, obviously, I needed to listen, but he broke my heart on the stand. I know I've said it. His mind seems to be getting clearer about where he was and the situation he was in. I do think he had some self-preservation going on. She had in one text message, I don't remember what he was supposed to do to Timothy, but she said, if it's not done, it's not going to be good for either one of you when I get home. So who knows what was happening to Paul? I don't know that much about autism, but if I had to guess, and it would be a complete guess, he would seem to have some level of it, or there's something that prosecutor is right. There is something there. I don't know what it is, but I felt really bad for him. I think he's in his own hell, and he's waking up, and he realizes what he did, and he knows who. She called the shots. He was the enforcer, and he's realizing that. So I hope, like I said, she's life, period, from what the defense attorney says. His interview is much shorter. If you haven't listened to it yet, you should go take a listen to it. It's a good one. He made me laugh because he's bothering. He apparently has maybe never worn AirPod before because he put it upside down and it wouldn't stay in, so it kept falling out. So he's just holding it. I don't know. Maybe his ears are like mine, and they don't fit in my ears, so I wouldn't wear one anyway. Plus, I don't have an iPhone. That's another reason. So she's life without parole. I hope he gets some sort of something eventually. I don't know. They would not allow him to say what he was facing, and nobody else said it either, and nobody has still said it. I'm hoping the prosecutor, it doesn't sound like he's going to, so I hope he keeps the first degree murder charges off. And I have to go back and listen because they found her guilty. Did they find her guilty of second degree felony murder? It doesn't matter because, as the defense attorney said, it's life without parole. It's the same. That's the one choice. The only thing that probably would have gotten her any sort of release at some point in time was if they would have went with involuntary manslaughter. I'd say if they were on the fence, the video that we heard yesterday, but thank goodness did not have to see, put them squarely in the whatever degree of unaliving, I don't want to get in trouble, charge that they found her guilty of. I agree with them. And I think she's exactly where she needs to be. I don't believe she was catatonic. I don't believe that she couldn't come to court. I think she didn't want to she knew she was going to be facing the jurors and their questions, and she didn't want to do that. How do you do that? How are you going to snow them? Because they probably had some really good questions. Or at least I hope they did. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear them. And she knew. She knew. She didn't want to come because she was only thinking about herself per usual. Everything was about Shanda. So I will, if they do her sentencing on January 29th, I believe, I will try to do a stream of it. It starts at 8:30 in the morning, so I'll have to see what date it is. I may not be able to do it live if it's on a Tuesday or a Thursday because I have to be at I have places I have a place I have to be at 10 a.m. on those days. So I don't, and I know it's going to take longer than an hour. So, but I'll keep an eye on it. Until then, I am out of here. I may try to do a couple of short streams if I can over the next week or two. If you haven't, please go check out my Twitter. Getting ready. It took me forever, but I have a picture of of Hera, my Dane, who is 2 today. So I call her my 130-pound toddler. She's fun and I love her. She's so sweet. What I said earlier about choosing a Great Dane as a service dog and why I wouldn't do it, I think Shanda did it for attention. Not saying she didn't need a service dog, but she didn't need. How many Great Dane service dogs have you seen? I've never even heard of one until this trial. They're generally labs, retriever, golden retrievers, those types of dogs, smaller dogs. Not that Great Danes couldn't do it. They're super, super sweet dogs. They need to be well socialized. But even if you do all of those things, people see the size of the dog and get scared because they're huge. And when you're around them all the time, like I'm around mine obviously every day, they don't seem so big to me. And I have to keep that in mind that I'm used to them. But when I take them to the vet, I pull in, I call. Is it okay? Can I bring them in? Well, I take one at a time. I have 3, but I take one unless somebody's with me. Can I bring them in? Because I don't want anybody to feel scared of my dogs. So for me, that's why I don't think it's a good idea to have a big dog like that as a service dog. And I wonder why she did. To me, it's just because she wanted the attention of, look at my giant dog. She's little. She looks little. She doesn't look very tall. So, they probably seemed bigger around her, whatever. I don't know. I don't like her. I've said it. She's evil. She didn't deserve the dogs. I'm glad they're away from her. I hope they're happy wherever they are. But that was just my feelings on it. And it was a bad idea. It's just a bad idea. So, yeah, that's all I say. That's all I will say. I just don't want him. I don't want him to get a bad reputation because somebody put him in a situation that they shouldn't have been in. So, that's it. So, that's all. Rant over. I'll go. But I'm going to post a picture on my Twitter of Miss Hera. It was, the 50th take to try to get her to look at me and sit still just for just a second. But it'll be up there in just a minute as soon as I stop talking and end this. So y'all have a good evening. I'll see you sometime, or I'll see you after the new year. I don't know, but I'm sure I'll see you before then.